There is no sign that the government shutdown will end anytime soon, and now the president wants a primetime address to repeat his lies. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. Our political system feels like it's at a breaking point. It was always fragile, but then Donald Trump came along and wrecked it. He's like the guy at a party watching a game of Jenga going, "Take that one, no, that one." And then finally someone says, "You know what? If you think it's so easy, you try it." And then he just lights the Jenga tower on fire. Boom. Now I collect the insurance money, build a bigger tower. There is no more basic test of a political leader than this. Can you keep the government running? And Trump is now again failing that test for the third time in his presidency. In real life, you don't get rehired after that. He's like a stoner working at a pizza place. "Hey, Kevin, how was business today?" "Oh, yeah, it was really slow, man." "Did you unlock the front door?" "Oh, man." "I'm sorry, Kevin. You have given me no choice, Kevin. You're going to get the Cecil B. DeMille Award." And the government shutdown that is now in its third week isn't just a political fight over a useless border wall that Trump repeatedly said Mexico would pay for. It's having real-world consequences for millions of people, from federal workers going without pay to anyone who flies on an airplane.
15 federal agencies are affected by the shutdown. 420,000 federal employees are working without pay, and 380,000 employees are now on unpaid leave.
Federal tax refunds will be delayed. Food stamps for 38 million Americans will be cut. Millions of people will lose rental assistance payments. And union leaders say hundreds of TSA workers are already off the job.
Already, hundreds of TSA employees have missed work at major airports across the country. It's fueling concerns of possible security risks and travel disruptions.
Can you imagine what a nightmare that'll be? It's a major disruption when one TSA agent has to go get more plastic bins. Think about that. Donald Trump is such a bad president, he found a way to make air travel worse than it already was. By the end of his term, the only airline will be Spirit, the only in-flight movie will be Dirty Grandpa, and every seat will be a middle seat. We're in a self-inflicted crisis over a government shutdown because the president is incompetent and unhinged. He's virtually incapable of uttering a truthful or coherent thought about almost anything. Just take one of the most basic responsibilities of his job, national security. Here's Trump from last week describing a meeting with generals at the Pentagon who tried to brief him on danger spots around the world.
"When I became president, I had a meeting at the Pentagon with lots of generals. They were like from a movie. Better looking than Tom Cruise and stronger. And I had more generals than I've ever seen. And we were at the bottom of this incredible room. I said, this is the greatest room I've ever seen. I saw more computer boards than I think that they make today."
Why does he always sound like a coworker telling you about a dream he had? There were generals, and we were in this room with computer boards, right? And you were there, but you weren't you, you know? You had your head, but my body. At that same meeting, Trump rattled off a bizarre and incoherent explanation of the Russian invasion of Afghanistan in 1979. Now, the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan was condemned at the time and since. Only Russia has tried to justify it until last week, when the President of the United States publicly stated for the first time that Russia was right to invade and occupy Afghanistan.
Russia used to be the Soviet Union. Afghanistan made it Russia because they went bankrupt fighting in Afghanistan. Russia. The reason Russia was in Afghanistan was because terrorists were going into Russia. They were right to be there. The problem is it was a tough fight. And literally they went bankrupt. They went into being called Russia again as opposed to the Soviet Union.
Look, sometimes you get involved in something that goes so badly you have to change your name. For example, you take a job as Donald J. Trump and you leave it as prisoner 5678891. Although, let's be honest. Best outcome, Trump cooperates with Mueller, rolls on everyone else, and goes into witness protection. "Hi, I'm your new neighbor, Ronald Bump. I don't want to say why I moved here, but it was Obama's fault." Also, I love how Trump thinks it's an amazing insight to say Russia used to be the Soviet Union. He thought it was so impressive, he said it twice.
Russia used to be the Soviet Union. They went into being called Russia again as opposed to the Soviet Union.
Wow. Really, Dr. History? Russia used to be the Soviet Union? This sounds like when the gym teacher has to cover social studies for a week. All right, everybody settle down. We're gonna watch Red Dawn. And that was nothing compared to the stream of incoherent nonsense Trump reeled off in a press conference at the White House on Friday after a meeting with congressional leaders on the shutdown. The press conference got crazier as it went on, including a point at which Trump tried incoherently to explain how migrants cross the southern border.
We've already built a lot of the wall. We've renovated a tremendous amount of wall. I just told you we did a lot of wall in San Diego. Steel is stronger than concrete. So if I have a steel wall, or you could call it a steel fence, we're not talking about games. And I called up. I said, hi, it's President Trump. What's going on? They say, President Trump? We don't know who that is. They come in through these vast open areas. They get off the road, and they drive out into the desert, and they come on, they make a left turn. Usually it's a left, not a right. These coyotes and these human traffickers, they make a right turn before they get to the port of entry. They go as far as the wall is, or as far as the barricade is, and then they make a left. Welcome to the United States.
The coyotes drive across the border, they make a right, then a left, they go as far as the wall, and then it's welcome to the United States. That idea is so insane and incoherent, there's a good chance he got it from watching cartoons. These coyotes, they're strapping themselves to rockets and shooting themselves over the border, so we have to build a wall, and we have to paint a tunnel on it. That's how you get him with the tunnel. You get him with the tunnel. Trump started out the press conference by inviting congressional leaders to speak, and just to give you an idea of how fried his brain is, watch how he thanks House Republican Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy after his comments. Once again, this is Kevin McCarthy speaking.
We will stay in the room and get this job done. And there was progress today. I look forward to solving it.
Thank you, Steve.
I mean, now, in fairness to Trump, if you forget an old white guy's name, you have a decent chance if you just throw out a Steve. But maybe the wildest thing Steve said on... Oh, Steve. Yeah, this guy. This guy. Hey! Hey, you got a glass house over there! Oh, it's good to be back. But maybe the wildest thing Trump said on Friday was when he threatened to start building the wall unilaterally by declaring a national emergency.
Have you considered using emergency powers to grant yourself authorities to build this wall without congressional approval? And second,
Yes,
on
I have.
Mexico, you have.
Yes, I have. And I can do it if I want.
So you don't need congressional approval to build the
No,
wall?
we can use them, absolutely. We can call a national emergency because of the security of our country, absolutely. No, we can do it. I haven't done it. I may do it. I may do it. But we can call a national emergency and build it very quickly.
Just a side note here, reporters, stop asking questions like that. There's a good chance that Trump never thought about using emergency power until that reporter brought it up. He is very suggestible. A reporter could say, Mr. President, have you thought about wearing a military uniform everywhere and executing your enemies in the Rose Garden? And he would go, we're looking into that very strongly. Did you get that? Write that down. I like that. Apparently, that performance wasn't crazy enough because today Trump announced he wants to address the nation on Tuesday night. And even in his tweet announcing the speech, Trump lied. He tweeted, I'm pleased to inform you that I will address the nation on the humanitarian and national security crisis on our southern border, Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Okay, first of all, just because Trump wants to address the nation doesn't mean networks should air it. Otherwise, they're just passing on his lies unfiltered. They should either reject him outright or, if he insists on speaking in primetime, make him do it as a contestant on The Masked Singer.
They get off the road, and they drive out into the desert, and they come on, they make a left turn. Usually it's a left, not a right.
Second, There's no national security crisis at the border. Trump and his aides keep repeating the debunked lie. The terrorists are sneaking in from Mexico. Yesterday, Sarah Huckabee Sanders tried it on Fox News and got fact-checked by Chris Wallace.
We know that roughly nearly 4,000 known or suspected terrorists come into our country illegally. And we know that our most vulnerable point of entry is at our southern border.
I know this statistic. I didn't know if you were going to use it, but I studied up on this. Do you know where those 4,000 people come, or where they're captured? Airports.
Not always, but certainly a large number.
The State Department says there hasn't been any terrorists that they found coming across the southern border from Mexico.
It's by air, it's by land, and it's by sea. It's all of the above.
No, it's not. It's only by air. As soon as they fact-check her, she turns into Paul Revere. It's 1 if by land, 2 if by sea, and 4,000 by air. Also, look at her face. She has literally never heard a reporter use the words, "I studied up on this" before. That's her face. She cannot believe she is being fact-checked by someone on Fox News. As soon as that interview ended, she stormed off the set and screamed, "Who let them have Google?" Trump is totally incoherent and capable of telling the truth. He shouldn't get to address the nation just to repeat his lies. If he calls up the networks asking for airtime, they should pick up the phone and say,
President Trump, we don't know who that is.
This has been A Closer Look.